Well, speaking of music and albums, so you've got a new album in the works. So where are you in that process? And do you know when that might be released?
So we have one of the benefits of having some extra time on our hands is we've been able to write a lot of new material, and we're sitting on a whole new album that I think it's going to be our best one yet. I'm really excited about it. And so we actually were supposed to go into the studio next month in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With our full band to record the album. And, as far as instead of doing that, what we've decided to do is, since COVID numbers are still going up and it would be just unsafe for everybody, Sarah and I are still going to go in a couple weeks, and we're going to pick 5 of the songs that will be on the new album and do a really stripped down version of them, but in the same studio, really, really high quality. It'll just be me, Sarah, our producer, and a bass player who can kind of play anything, who will be adding some sparkle on the songs, but they'll be really stripped down. And then in the summer, when things are hopefully safer, we're going to get all the band together, re-record those 5 and the other 5, and release it as a full album. And as far as when it will be released, we're actually thinking about shopping this one around to some labels and trying to make something happen with this one, since that's kind of the 3rd album seems to sort of be the magic number for a career to start getting some real attention. So I think a lot of it depends on that, but hopefully I would hope, winter maybe of 2021.
Yeah.
Maybe spring of 2022.
And as far as recording is concerned, do you think you'll do it similar to the last one, like everybody all together live?
Yeah, that's why we decided to do the strip downs, and because to me there was so much magic made with everybody playing it together that I would rather wait and do it that way rather than have everyone go in one by one. It's just you lose so much improvisation in the moment of, wow, you just did this thing and I heard it and you probably didn't even hear it. Let's do that, or whatever it could be. You just feed off of each other's energy and
creating the mood, and everybody being kind of like, this sounds like really hippy dippy, but like vibing together. It just,
it's really important.
Yeah. I don't think I might be, what is it, the saying, shooting myself in the foot, but I don't think we would ever go back to like tracking songs like, okay, a bass player comes in for 3 days and he's had a bad day and he's over caffeinated and hasn't had a lot of sleep. Okay, the mandolin player is going to come in. He's had a great day and like everything, like there's just so many variations, and I love everybody playing together, and it's just really fun. So yes, we are going to do album number 3
at the same studio,
same crew, same process.
That sounds amazing. So now you're advertising something called private porch concerts. I want to hear about this. And how do these things differ from the stay-at-home concerts?
Yeah, so since it's been so cold here in North Carolina, which by cold I mean like 45 degrees, so it's really not that bad. We've had a lot of flexibility. We started to have people reach out to us and say, hey, would you come and do a socially distanced concert for just my family? Like, on the porch or on the patio or whatever. So we did a few of those and they went really, really well. It's just us, completely acoustic, like no microphones, it's so stripped down. And then we've been doing a handful every weekend all across the Triangle. And this weekend we're going to Wilmington to do a few. And yeah, it's just been really great, like just for us to keep up our motivation and our playing and just connecting with people.
It's also a really cool experience for those people to see us in that kind of environment too, because really our type of music really lends itself to that acoustic performance. And really microphones when we play live are just to capture the acoustic sound. So to be able to do that acoustically for people has been really special.
Yeah, it's been really cool. This past weekend, we had a really, really amazing experience. We had a husband, there's a husband and wife that live up here in North Carolina, and they, like, in normal times, they come to, like, all of our shows. They're huge supporters of us. And the husband wrote to me and said, like, could you come by and just surprise my wife for her birthday and play a few songs? So we got to
She could not stop crying.
We got to sneak up to their house and knock on the door, and she could not believe that we were there. And it was just so funny. And it was a really, really sweet time. Like, they just sat on their couch and we sang with masks on, 6 feet away. And, like, she's just, like, crying about
Yeah,
it was
really
insane.
special.
But it was so special.
Those are the times during all of this that, you just think if it had been any other situation, we would have not been able to do this.
Right. Like, we probably right now we could have been in Philadelphia or playing, I don't know. I don't know where we would be, but it just wouldn't be happening the same way.
So for 2021, well, I'll ask the big question in a moment, but are things coming back online? How about that? In terms of at least talk about the festivals, talk about the larger venues, has anybody been kind of bold about that?
To be completely honest with you, no, there's not hardly anything happening in that world. The only thing that we currently have on our calendar besides our private shows and stay-at-home tour concerts is Merle Fest in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, is slated for the September 16th through the 19th, and we are scheduled to be there.
Last year they had 82,000 people there, though, so I just...
In 2019,
everybody,
right?
even they are, but I think it's like, at this point, it's kind of like waiting on the first person to take the first move to say, let's try this. And, I think it's the people that, like at Walnut Creek and these huge venues, they're kind of setting the standard. Like, a lot of the smaller venues can't really make a move until they see that the bigger guys are doing it too. So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out, and we're very thankful not to have to be really worried about that. But I definitely am looking forward to it.
Yeah,
sure.
I wish I could bring happier news or like a more positive answer to that question. But as far as on our end as the artist and like our self-booking agent, we haven't seen any movement at all.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that people have this, people are craving live music. I feel like we've been without for so long that there's just this huge hunger. And we keep hearing the phrase, when everything's over and we return to this sort of normalcy that we may have had once upon a time. I feel like you guys have perfectly transitioned and maintained that in a different form. And that's such a gift. I couldn't help but notice, I guess it was yesterday, you posted that 3 years ago, you filmed yourselves playing Chattanooga. And then that was kind of at the beginning of everything as you're kind of dreaming and moving into things. If you could go back and talk to yourselves, knowing what you know now, pandemic included, what would you say to yourselves 3 years ago at the beginning of this wild journey? And how would that maybe have impacted you going forward?
Dang, that's such a good question. I have never really thought about that before. I was just going to say I would have just give myself a kick in the pants to do it sooner.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Why did we wait for years?
I don't understand why we didn't do it sooner. And I would also say, like, the biggest piece of advice that I could give my former self or like anybody thinking about making a big jump is just like the connections you make with people and like the people and who you spend time with and who you are generous to, that like will all come back and bless you. And I just I think that's like just a huge core belief, and I would just like go back and like reassure myself of that.
Yeah, I would reassure myself that, we're going to be okay, and we're going to be able to make a go of this. Because, when we started, we were just I was so worried that we'd have to even sell our, all of the things we'd have to do to prepare to make this viable. And we were so fortunate that I guess it was a combination of just being super blessed and working really hard and maybe having some talent along the way too that allowed us to be okay from the get-go. And I wish I could have known that going into it, because there was definitely some fear and worried nights that could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm.
Connected to that, but in a completely different context. This whole thing of going on the mission field, like for us, people ask, well, how do you fundraise? Like it's a strategy, or something like that. And I'm just saying, well, how many people are you connected to? Whose lives are you pouring into? And if I get a good answer from that, then I'll say, then you don't need to worry, But if I get a bad answer, it's just like, yeah, maybe you ought to work on that first, and then you can, kind of think about the other thing.
Definitely.
The amount of times that we have been randomly Venmo'd $100, or somebody has driven from 3 or 4 hours away to come see us, or whatever.
Come see a stay-at-home tour.
Planned a whole weekend around it. It's those things that you're like, man, it's so much about the relationship, like the music or the ministry, like in your case, like those things are like the whole reason you're doing it. But the relationships are like what's supporting the support beams of those tangibles,
And you will get out of it what you put into it. Like you gotta put in the time and effort and like genuinely listening to people when they talk to you and knowing their pets' names and like.
Sarah's really good at that stuff.
Yeah. But like I'm just such a huge proponent of that stuff making a huge difference. And your example about, mission work is the exact same thing. Like just think about your network, and if that feels good, you're in a good place. If it doesn't, that's where you should start working on.
That's so good. I think Paul said it perfectly when he mentioned about how you guys are such innovators. And when all this hit and we had hoped to see you guys here in South Carolina, and part of me kind of panicked and thought, oh no, what are they going to do? And then to see that you guys shifted so quickly and moved into this other phase that was so successful. Did you find that you were sort of mentors to other musicians, or do you have any interaction with other musicians who were sort of struggling as well, and you were able to influence them in a positive way?
I think the answer to that is definitely yes to some, but I'm actually very surprised at how few other musicians are doing something like the stay-at-home tour. And at first, the easy answer is it's a resource problem. But I really think you don't have to have a tour van. You don't have to have the setup that we have. We're really fortunate to have it to do it. And I just think there's a lot of musicians that are so discouraged by what's happening that it's been really hard for them emotionally to move on. And you've seen a lot of people turn to the virtual world. And honestly, they might be having just as much success as we are. We just did not go there pretty much at all. So I think we've been role models in the sense that we've shown other musicians, and we've had a lot of inquiries like saying like, you guys have helped us realize that we can still do this, but maybe not do what exactly we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But be encouraged to do their own thing.
But I have been surprised, like Austin said, I've quite honestly just been surprised that people haven't reached out to us more just about like the technical, like, okay, what how many watts or whatever, I don't know the solar panel stuff, but like, like what are you using for that? But I am happy because Pinecone, which is the Piedmont Council of Traditional Music, they just invited us to speak at a webinar to talk to musicians across North Carolina. There were representatives from the Lumbee Native American tribe, and like musicians from all over North Carolina. And we specifically like talked to them and broke down exactly what we did so they can take this idea back to their communities. So there's also been some organizations that have been really great about like utilizing us, which we're really glad about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so well said. And that was one of my questions and curiosities, was just the technical side of things, to be able to roll up somewhere and know you got everything you need to do exactly what you're doing. Did that involve a lot of research on your part?
It did. I would say I've really been thinking about this. I think for like $2,500, you could have a really perfect setup for the stay-at-home tour, assuming you have a vehicle. So all you really need is 2 solar panels that will total about 600 watts, and then some sort of, we had a solar controller and a battery bank and an inverter that we could plug into. But they actually make solar generators that have all of that in one. They have a battery, the charge controller, the inverter, and everything. So all you need is the solar panel. So those generators are like $1,000, and solar panels, you can find them even used pretty cheap, and mount them even temporarily mount them to your roof rack of your car. And I mean, you can have a setup pretty easily. Oh, and then you have to have a trailer. But I mean, I was even thinking, like, there's a lot of music nonprofits. Like, I would love to talk to some of those nonprofits about like deferring some of their funds to like purchasing rigs like this for musicians, or maybe buying a few rigs and then leasing them, or letting musicians borrow them for a while. And Pinecone sort of touched on that. We kind of helped them develop a little package of what a musician would need in order to do this, the stay-at-home tour.
Because most musicians, if you are playing professionally in any sort of level, like, you're going to have your own sound system. So that part's normally taken care of. But yeah, it's a very doable thing. Like, I'm really happy that we came up with it, but like, it's so, like, people can take this idea and run with it. Yep. It's very doable.
That's so cool. I'm such a sucker for tiny house shows, off-grid shows, hit-the-road shows. And so I think it's so cool what you guys are doing. And how many nights would you say that you've spent in your van? I think you went out west this last summer.
Yeah, we went. So we bought our tour van, the one that was the terrible decision back in March. We bought that, and then we had it like 3 weeks on the road, and then we were also able to take a trip. Once we were finished with most of the stay-at-home tours, we went out to Montana and back, and spent a month on the road, and that was really fun and kind of our reward for our hard work, and also hopefully some creative inspiration to like finish the album. We wrote 3 songs after that trip, so we needed to like write the last few to make a complete album, and so it happened, which was great.
Yeah. We love being on the road. It's by far where we're most comfortable.
So I guess to wrap up, what are your hopes for 2021?
My hope for 2021 is that we continue the stay-at-home tour, and we like get it down to even more of a science, and like meet more people, and go to places we haven't been. The other thing that I'm really excited about is another thing we did in 2020 is we built an open air barn at our property. So thinking ahead and knowing that we would need an outdoor venue for COVID safe shows. So we're planning to host 8 different concerts at our home, and potentially supporting other local musicians. I'm talking with a Chatham County flower farm about coming out and selling bouquets at our concerts, and just trying to basically, like, this sounds cheesy, but hopefully pay it forwards, or just bless people with the good fortune that we have had, and like the privilege that we feel like we have. So those are the 2 things: stay-at-home tour and barn concerts. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And let me ask, I'm sorry, Sarah, what's the capacity of the barn?
Yeah, so in COVID times, the capacity for everybody to be spaced out will be 45 people.
Okay.
And
it's a 36 by 36, a middle concrete pad with a shelter, and then it has 2 12 by 36 foot wings on each side. So it should be 45 people, and then there's a gravel lot in front of it that could kind of spill out. But yeah, we're going to do 2 months concert series every Saturday night there, and just sell 45 tickets. And then hopefully we'll have like a surprise local guest, musical guest. So you guys should, if you couldn't see us come up for one of those.
Come up to North Carolina.
I'm imagining myself there right now.
It would be so fun.
Paul and I are going to get a van that's got solar panels. We're going to hit the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, peace signs, the whole thing.
I do it. I'm in.
I love it. Yeah, you guys can come meet Cersei.
Yeah, totally. Get a little peace from Cersei. I big animals. There's just something about that, right? When you're up close to them, it's just very peaceful.
They are totally. I completely agree with that. I never grew up around animals like that, and Sarah did, and she was like, you really are going to love it. And I have just, whenever I'm feeling a little stressed out, going out there and just being beside something that could probably kill you, but that who really just wants to be your friend is very special. I don't know.
Apparently that's comforting to us.
It is.
A little bit different than that dog you grew up with, right?
Yes, very different.
We won't say anything about that. And Austin, did you have anything to add about 2021?
Oh, yeah, what's your 2021?
You summed it up pretty well. I think just for me, the overarching goal is to focus on really grassroots fan building that will lead to a big push in our career when things do get back to normal. Like these stay-at-home tours, the way I'm looking at them is we are playing in front of more people on a grassroots level that would have never heard about us. Because we're literally going to the neighborhood. It's like a Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door. Like
you can't escape us.
You're going to. You may agree or disagree, but you're going to at least see them and be exposed to what they have to say. And I feel like that was us with this stay-at-home tour. There's probably hundreds of people that we played for that never cared anything about bluegrass music, but because we were in front of them, maybe we always would say like, we really invite you to follow us on social media, and then when things get back to normal, come see a show. So that's my biggest goal for 2021 is to just build even more of a base, one by one, of people that know us and know our name.
Well, that's certainly the case for me. Getting to know bluegrass through you.
Yeah.
I'm not like Scott that grew up with this. So I mean, it's just the whole thing is fascinating and great, I think. And yeah, totally. In fact, I just reconnected with a college friend, and we just interviewed actually, who lives in Chatham County, in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that person either. So
y'all should definitely come up to a barn
concert. Yeah, come
concert.
to a barn show. I think you'd have a great time. We've done 2 trial shows at the barn, and both went phenomenally well.
Great. Scott, I think you and me just, let it be a guy's weekend. Just, yeah. Totally.
That'd be so good. Yeah. Talking solar panels and battery
banks.
I've been watching so many YouTube videos on this stuff.
Scott is ready.
Oh, my goodness. Well, as always, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And,
of course.
And we look forward to just continuing this conversation. And one day we will do on the scene kind of interview. Who knows? Maybe it's at your barn. That would be
that would be fantastic.
And we could interview the cow. We could do the whole thing.
You would have so much good footage that you like. Yeah,
so much content. So we would love that, and we're really appreciative for a chance to chat with y'all and tell our story. And
thanks for being supporters of us and believing in what we're doing. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who's been listening. This has been Moments That Matter.
Thanks for listening to Moments That Matter, a podcast that looks at the moments in our lives that come along from time to time that have consequences long after the moment, especially those moments that have to do with the choice of vocation. In his book, Let Your Life Speak, Listening for the Voice of Vocation, Parker Palmer speaks of a clearness committee in the Quaker tradition, wherein a group of older, wiser people ask questions of someone considering a life choice as a way of clarifying the next step. We may not meet with a committee about these big decisions, but we all have these critical junctures in our lives. which we can think of as Clearness Committee moments. We need to pay attention to these moments because they are profound and potentially life-altering. We'll relay stories from our lives and interview others about theirs, especially noting the Clearness Committee moments, those we choose to recognize and those that were sadly ignored, those decisions that were made with God in mind and those that were not. Our hope is that these podcasts will cause you to think of the same kind of moments in your life with new clarity.